Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support spreads the message of faith. Now listen carefully. Trust Allah once, truly trust Him, and you'll watch your whole life change. Not because the world outside suddenly becomes easy, but because the world inside finally becomes peaceful. Ibn Arabi said, "When you trust the divine plan, every path becomes straight." Most people say they trust Allah, but they hold on to fear as if fear could save them. True trust begins where control ends. It's when you stop asking why me, and start whispering, Ya Allah, I know you have a reason. The moment you surrender your anxiety into His hands, you feel a shift, quiet, powerful, unexplainable. The same worries that used to crush you start to dissolve like sand in the tide. Because trust isn't about expecting life to be perfect, it's about knowing that every twist, every delay, every closed door is part of a divine story written for your growth. Ibn Arabi called it tawakkul, a highest form of faith, when your heart leans completely on Allah, not your logic, not your strength. And once you do that, once you let go, you'll see His mercy move in ways you could never imagine. The same pain that once broke you will become the reason you rise. The same loss that once blinded you will become the window through which light enters your soul. So trust Him once, truly, completely, and watch how your whole life transforms. Because Allah never disappoints those who surrender with a sincere heart. When you truly trust Allah, everything inside you begins to realign. The noise quiets, the fear softens, and you begin to see the wisdom behind every delay and detour. You stop forcing what's not meant for you because you understand that what's written will reach you no matter how far it seems. Ibn Arabi said, "Nothing that belongs to you will pass you by, and nothing that passes you by ever belong to you." That single truth changes everything. When you trust Allah once fully, you'll notice how your worries lose power, how your prayers feel lighter, how peace finds you in moments that used to break you. You stop arguing with fate because you know the author is perfect. Even when the path gets dark, you walk calmly, knowing that every step has meaning, even the painful ones. That's the secret of divine trust. It doesn't remove hardship, it transforms how you walk through it. The believer who trusts is never lost, he's guided through unseen ways. So take that step, trust Allah once, and watch how doors you never knocked on begin to open, how burdens you thought would crush you begin to lift, how life itself bends to serve your faith. Because when your heart leans on Him completely, the world can't shake what peace He places inside you. And as you keep trusting, life itself begins to feel lighter. The same storms that once terrified you now remind you of His power, not your weakness. You start to walk through uncertainty with calm, because deep inside you know what's written for you will always find its way. Ibn Arabi said, "Faith is not believing that Allah can, it's knowing that He already has." That knowing changes the way you breathe. You no longer rush what takes time, because you've seen what happens when patience becomes prayer. You no longer fear losing what you love, because you understand that nothing truly yours can never be taken. When your heart learns to trust, even silence feels like mercy. Even the things that didn't work out begin to make sense. You realize Allah was never ignoring your prayers, He was protecting you from what your heart wasn't ready for. And when He finally gives, He gives in ways so perfect you'll cry from how wrong you once were to doubt. That's the beauty of trusting Him once, just once, because once your heart tastes that peace, it never wants to go back. You stop worrying about how or when, and start living in the certainty of who. And that's when your whole life begins to align, not because it suddenly became easy, but because now, your soul finally rests in the hands that never let go. And then, when your faith deepens, you start to notice how everything that once felt heavy begins to move with purpose. Even the things that hurt begin to serve you. That's what happens when you trust Allah truly. The chaos doesn't disappear, but you start seeing the order behind it. Ibn Arabi said, the one who relies on Allah finds rest even in the middle of a storm. That rest is not laziness, it's surrender, the kind that comes from knowing that nothing reaches you except what He has already chosen. You stop clinging to outcomes because you realize that peace was never waiting at the end of the road, it was hidden in the act of trusting while walking. The same moments that used to make you anxious now make you whisper Alhamdulillah, because you see His hand arranging everything. You lose something, and instead of panic, you feel gratitude, knowing that what left was never meant to stay. You gain something, and you bow your head, understanding it was written long before you asked. This is what real tawakkul looks like, not weakness, but quiet strength. And when you trust Allah once, just once with everything, your fears, your plans, your heart, you'll witness how He rewrites your life with mercy you didn't know you deserved. And as that trust settles deeper into your heart, life begins to unfold in a rhythm you can finally feel. You wake up lighter, not because the world changed, but because you did. You've stopped carrying what was never yours to carry. The future no longer scares you, because you know the author of your story never makes mistakes. Ibn Arabi said, "When you let go of your own will, the divine will move through you like breath." That's the secret. Letting go doesn't mean losing control, it means realizing you were never in control to begin with. You start to notice how every delay holds a hidden blessing, how every disappointment carries direction. The job that didn't come, the person who walked away, the prayer that stayed unanswered, none of it was rejection, it was redirection. Allah was never taking things from you, He was making space for something better, something written precisely for your soul. And when that realization takes root, you stop asking for signs, because your whole life becomes one. You trust the silence as much as the answer, the waiting as much as the arrival. And that's when you see it, not with your eyes, but with your heart, how everything, absolutely everything, was always working for you, not against you. Because once you trust Allah truly, every path, every heartbreak, every breath starts to lead you home. And the deeper your trust grows, the quieter your soul becomes. You no longer rush through days chasing outcomes, you begin to walk like someone who knows they are guided. You pray not out of desperation, but out of love, because you've seen what happens when you hand your life to the one who already knows what's best for you. Ibn Arabi said, "The heart that trusts Allah never complains, it simply says, Alhamdulillah in every season." That's what true faith feels like, not blind hope, but radiant certainty. You begin to notice how ease slips into your life through places that once brought only struggle. The doors that were locked suddenly open, not because you pushed harder, but because you finally stopped fighting the timing. And even when things don't go your way, your heart doesn't tremble, because it's anchored to something stronger than circumstance. You see others panic, but you stay calm, not out of pride, but because you've met peace, and peace wears the face of trust. You've tasted what happens when you stop saying I can't and start whispering Allah can. And once your heart has known that kind of security, there's no going back. You'll look back one day and realize that every test, every wait, every unanswered prayer was never meant to break you, it was meant to teach you what love disguised as trust truly looks like. And one day, you'll look back and realize how trusting Allah even once changed everything. The problems that once consumed you now look like lessons, the people who left now feel like mercy, and the moments that broke you now glow with wisdom. You'll see how every no was protecting a yes written by His hand. Ibn Arabi said, "The lover of Allah finds beauty even in the breaking." That's what true trust teaches you, to see divine beauty in everything. Even what hurts. When you trust Him, life stops being random, it becomes sacred. You begin to recognize His timing in every heartbeat, His mercy in every setback, His love in every silence. The peace that comes from that is unshakable. You no longer fear tomorrow, because you've already placed it in the hands of the one who owns time. You no longer beg for outcomes, because you trust the one who writes them. You wake up with a calm heart and sleep with gratitude, because you finally understand that Allah never takes without giving, never delays without reason, never tests without purpose. Trust Him once, and you'll realize that everything that happened to you wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to guide you back to Him. And once you find Him, you'll see that was the change your whole life was waiting for. And from that moment on, life begins to move with a different rhythm, slower, deeper, filled with meaning. You start to understand that peace doesn't come from what you control, it comes from who you surrender to. The heart that once chased answers now rests in remembrance. Ibn Arabi said, "When the heart submits, it becomes the mirror of divine will." That's what happens when you trust Allah. Your heart stops resisting what's written and begins to reflect His wisdom instead. The same pain that once made you cry now makes you grateful, because you see what it was trying to show you. Every delay that once felt unfair now feels like protection. Every loss that once broke you now feels like redirection. And in that stillness, you begin to hear it, that quiet, constant voice that was always there, whispering, "Trust me." You realize He was never testing your patience, He was teaching your heart how to see. When you finally understand that, you stop fearing the unknown, because you know the author. You stop clinging to the past, because you trust His plan for your future. You walk lighter, talk softer, and love deeper, because you've seen how everything changes once you let Allah lead. And when you do, you'll find that your whole life doesn't just get easier, it becomes sacred. And when you live in that sacred trust long enough, you begin to see how life bends toward peace. You no longer fear change, because every change feels guided. You no longer grieve endings, because you finally understand they were beginnings in disguise. The same world that once felt unpredictable now feels divinely precise. Every turn, every delay, every silence, all of it becomes a language of mercy. Ibn Arabi said, "The one who knows Allah sees only perfection, even in imperfection." That's what trust does, it opens your eyes to perfection hidden inside what others call chaos. You stop trying to control the story, because you know the author is kind. You stop demanding answers, because you trust that every question will be answered in time. And then one day, without realizing it, you wake up free, not because life is perfect, but because your heart no longer depends on it to be. You've seen what happens when you hand everything to Allah once, truly once, and now you live in that surrender. Your fears lose their voice, your doubts lose their power, and peace becomes your permanent companion. That's how your whole life changes, not from outside, but from within, from the moment you finally whispered, "I trust you." And from that whisper, a new life begins, quiet, steady, unshakable. You start to see Allah's plan unfolding in the smallest things, in a stranger's smile, in the timing of a message, in the way something you once begged for slips away only to return when your heart is ready. You realize that trusting Allah doesn't mean everything will make sense, it means you no longer need it to. Ibn Arabi said, "When the heart surrenders, even confusion becomes light." And truly, you begin to feel that light guiding you. You walk into uncertainty without fear because you've seen what happens when faith replaces control. You stop begging for signs and start living like one, calm, grounded, radiant with belief. The tests still come, but you face them differently now. Where you once said, "Why me?" you now say, "Alhamdulillah, there's wisdom here." You've learned that when Allah takes, He's preparing to give; when He delays, He's protecting; when He is silent, He's teaching. That's what real trust feels like. It's not the absence of trials, it's the presence of peace within them. And once you taste that peace, you'll never go back. Because you'll see that the moment you trusted Him once, truly once, the story of your life changed forever. It stopped being about what you wanted, and became about what He always knew you needed. And when you finally surrender your whole heart, trust no longer feels like an effort, it becomes your natural state. You begin to live in a quiet rhythm where every moment, good or bad, becomes a form of worship. You no longer resist what comes, nor chase what leaves. Everything starts to flow, because your heart flows with His will. Ibn Arabi said, when the servant accepts the command of Allah with love, even hardship turns into sweetness. You start to feel that sweetness in places where there used to be pain. The things that once broke you now build you. The nights that once made you cry now make you pray. You begin to see how even the smallest details of your life are perfectly placed. Every coincidence, every delay, every person who enters or leaves, all of it is a verse written for you. You live lighter now, because you finally believe that what's meant for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant. Trusting Allah once was the beginning. But now, trusting Him has become your way of life. And from that place of peace, you finally understand, you don't need to know what tomorrow holds, because you know who holds tomorrow. And as this truth sinks deeper into your heart, you start to see the world differently. The rush of life slows down. The noise fades. Even your pain feels sacred, because you sense the meaning behind it. Trust has turned your heart into a sanctuary, a place where fear no longer lives. You wake up each morning not asking what will happen today, but whispering whatever happens, it's from you, Ya Allah. Ibn Arabi said, when the heart becomes content with Allah's decree, every moment becomes paradise. And that's exactly how it feels even when things don't go your way, even when storms rise again. You've learned that trusting Allah doesn't mean the wind will stop blowing, it means you've built your faith strong enough to stand in it. You no longer chase what's next, you live in the now, knowing that every breath carries divine precision. The peace you once begged for now walks beside you quietly. You start to realize that life isn't about controlling the script, it's about surrendering to the author. Every delay, every twist, every closed door begins to look like mercy. You smile more, worry less, and pray deeper. Because once you've trusted Allah and watched your life change, you never forget that everything that happens, even the things you don't understand, are simply ways He says, I am with you. And in the end, when you've lived long enough with trust in your heart, you finally understand this was never about getting what you wanted, it was about becoming who Allah always knew you could be. The storms, the waiting, the heartbreak, the unanswered prayers, all of it was training your soul to lean on Him completely. Ibn Arabi said, when you see only Allah in everything, you have found peace. And that peace now lives in you. You no longer fear the future, because you've seen what happens when you place it in His hands. You no longer grieve what's gone, because you know nothing leaves except by His wisdom. You simply walk calm, aware, grateful, knowing that whatever meets you on the road was written with love. Trusting Allah once changed your life, but trusting Him always changed your heart. And now, every breath, every rise of the sun, every quiet moment is proof of one eternal truth. When you surrender to the one who writes your story, it always ends beautifully.